Hi, it's Karen. Thanks for joining me today. I'll be telling the story today of the small bowl of rice. This is a Jataka tale from Buddha, Lord Buddha, from ancient India. Once upon a time, there was a miser, a man who lived alone on the top of a hill in a great mansion. He had the most beautiful home and many beautiful possessions in it. And there were towers and rooms and gardens, any delight you can imagine for the eyes. He had it. But he lived all alone, except for a few servants that helped him, and his dog, who he never even bothered to name at all. He spent all of his time in his house, he never left it at all, in one of his many towers, counting his gold. He loved gold more than anything in the world, and every day he woke up and looked forward to going and counting out all of his gold and polishing it. He only went out once a year, and that was to collect taxes from the people who were in the surrounding villages so that he can increase his wealth and get more and more gold. And so it happened one year that he went out and collected gold in his beautiful gilded carriage. And he was coming back after a very good day collecting taxes with a big bag of gold on his lap that he was hugging close to him when he was, yeah, you guessed it, attacked by robbers. And the robbers came and they took all his gold. And of course, they took his beautiful horses and his carriage. And they even took the very clothes off his back. And they gave him rags to wear. And then they took him and his dog, who was with him, who he hadn't even bothered to name. They took them and they put them out into the forest, the deepest, darkest part of the forest, where they had no idea where they were. And they left him there in the dark, all alone. And there he was, the miser, with his dog, who he had never even named, alone in the dark and the cold. And they were very hungry and they were very frightened. And they didn't know what to do. But as it was getting late, and he had no idea where he was, and it was dark out, he crawled into a hedge and he fell asleep with his dog. And the next morning, he woke up in no better position than he was the night before, except for he could see, but he had no food, and his clothes were very patched and worn and cold. And he walked and walked for quite a ways, and getting hungrier, not finding his way, not finding a path. And finally, towards the end of the day, as the sun was sinking, he found a road. And he started walking along the road, and still no homes in sight. He had no idea where he was. Then all of a sudden, his little dog barked and ran off. And he thought, oh great, now I'm all alone in the world. So he ran after his dog, not to lose sight of the dog. And the dog was running towards a little hut. And there was some smoke coming up out of the hut. And it looked warm and inviting. And he started to run for it, the hut, after his dog. And he came to the door, just about to knock, and he thought, oh, yeah, how many times have I turned away people who have come to my house and asked for charity from me? Pretty much every single time. I have never helped anyone, any traveler, to come to my house, especially now. Look at me, dressed all in rags. Who would help someone like me? But he was very hungry and very tired, and he had no choice. So he knocked. And to the door came a man. And he was smiling, and he said, oh, ho, welcome. And by him was a little small dog, and he said, Archie, look, we have visitors. What can I do for you? And the man said, I'm sorry, I'm lost and I'm hungry. Could you spare me something to eat? And also a warm place to sleep tonight. And the man said, "Oh, yes," the poor man who lived in the hut. It was clear that he was poor because when you looked around the hut, there wasn't any furniture, there wasn't any nice things. There was a beautiful hearth and a nice warm fire inside. And he invited the miser in and said, come in and share my food with me. Tonight," he said jokingly, "we have a nice banquet of rice." And he was very happy, and it made it sound really good and warm and inviting. He said, "You'll have to share it with me, and your dog can share with my dog." So he took a big bowl for the dogs, and he put out some rice in it, and then he took two bowls down and split half for himself and half for his guest. And they sat down and ate. And the miser felt so comfortable with this man that after a while he opened up to him and he told him what had happened, how he had been robbed, and how he had come to the circumstances he was in. And then he told him his life, about how he lived in a grand house, and that he lived all alone, and that his days and nights were about counting his gold and all his money. And the poor man said, "You know, your story is very sad. I feel sad that you have nobody to spend your life with and that you're all alone." And the miser noticed also, "You're so poor, yet you're so happy." "Yes, I'm very happy. I have my dog Archie with me, and we have everything we need to be happy." This made the miser think a lot. And that night, when it was time to go to bed, the poor man offered him his spot next to the fireplace to sleep, the warmest spot, and the poor man took a spot on the floor, away from the fire. And the miser thought and thought. He had learned a lot that day, and he thought, "I will take this man to my house, and I will give him whatever he wants, and he will come and live with me." And the next day, that's exactly what happened. He invited him to come and stay with him in his big house and to share with him his wealth. And they all went together, the poor man and his dog Archie. And now the miser, who was no longer a miser, and his dog, who he bothered to name after all, and he called her Happy. And they went in happiness to the house. And they shared in it together. And not only that, instead of collecting taxes from all the people around him, he started to throw parties for them, a great feast and birthday parties for the children, and he used his money to improve the lives of all the people around him. And he was very happy indeed. Thank you for joining me for my story today. Hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you next time. Namaste.